Man, I am pasty. You'd have no idea I lived in California. Please, please, please like each video and subscribe and all that sort of stuff to my YouTube channel. I need to build up the audience. I'm a brand new channel and that sort of thing. So I want to put out good information, and if you guys think that this is good, it will help me build up the channel, but also it will tell me what you guys like, so I have some sort of idea what to continue with and what to keep adding to the channel. So right before we get started here, let me just mention the opinions expressed in this and the software to use and that sort of thing. All of this stuff is just from my personal experience. So there's a million different ways to do things, but I've been doing this stuff for years with virtual assistants. So I'm gonna recommend the things that I use and give my opinions based on my experience, essentially. I've been using virtual assistants for years personally. I have a dedicated full-time virtual assistant that's 40 hours a week. I've had up to 2 at a time, usually that are full-time or close to full-time. But I also have virtual assistants that help me run my business that are project-based. So I have some that do just graphic design or cutting the backgrounds out of photos. I have a guy in China that sources for me, that actually goes to the factories, a native Chinese speaker, calls the factories, that sort of thing, to negotiate prices and deals and that sort of thing. And then I've got another 1 or 2 that are just kind of on-demand illustration, that sort of thing. So any sort of that sort of design that I need. So that's kind of how I'm set up. I'm pretty much a one-person operation. Other than my virtual assistant, and then every once in a while I get some help, but it's pretty much just me running the place. So this information I'm about to give you is really, it can be applied towards any business. It's not specific towards what I do. So you can get a virtual assistant and they can just help you with your day-to-day life too. So here's how this is gonna go. I will kind of give you the basics, kind of the rundown on what is a virtual assistant. We'll talk a little bit about kind of the ins and outs. Then I'll tell you where you can, about 3 places where you can go hire a virtual assistant. I'll talk to you about how to vet them, that sort of thing, how to pay them. I'll talk about communication and organization using different types of software and whatnot. And I'll talk about their bonus, and then at the very end I'll talk about how to hire your second virtual assistant if you ever need a second or a project-based one or anything like that, because that's a little bit different and you actually kind of get to skip some of the steps, hopefully, if all goes well, that you use to hire the first one. So hiring the second one's typically easier, and I'll explain why and that sort of thing. So you can bounce around this all you want. You can pick and choose and cherry pick and just go to sections you like. But I'm gonna try and build on information. So if you watch it all the way through, you'll know exactly everything that's going on. If you bounce around, you may go, what, huh, what? Because it is building on previous information. So that's just kind of a heads up. In the comment section of the videos, I'm gonna try and put the link to the playlist. So that playlist, if you click on that, that should take you through each video in order, one at a time, so you could watch the whole thing beginning to end if you like. And I'll try and put that in each video. I also may put some links for any sort of supplies or if I do some training later, that sort of thing, that you can, pick up, and just, very specific stuff I'll put in there, just kind of help you guys out. But let me know what you think. I am not a professional at this whole video thing, so there's gonna be errors. so anyways, thanks guys. Let's get to the first video. Here we go. All right, let's start with what is a virtual assistant. So a virtual assistant is a person that is based remotely and they assist you with your business essentially. So they are virtual, they're not based in your actual business. Now, virtual assistants come from all over the place typically, and the hourly rate or the per project rate to hire them varies dramatically based on their geography. So A lot of the virtual assistants tend to come from the Philippines. The Philippines is a lower hourly wage typically, and it is, you know, a lower cost of living, all that sort of thing. So that is a popular location to hire virtual assistants from. India is another. Some, you know, countries over in Europe, there's a few, but a lot of the virtual assistants, you know, they come from overseas. Now, there are US-based virtual assistants too, so I don't want to forget US-based virtual assistants, because there's definitely times when you want to hire a US-based virtual assistant. The $2 to $3 an hour virtual assistants, those are typically going to come from the Philippines. And those virtual assistants are English writing typically. And if you get a good one, they're English speaking as well, as in they can get on the phone and they can actually speak English. Their skill set ranges dramatically, so you've got everybody from just starting out with no experience to people that are very experienced in particular areas. So the skill sets range dramatically depending on what you want. India, you know, you'll get a good hourly wage as well as far as hiring people. But typically what you'll see out of India is you'll see a lot of hiring firms and stuff like that, where there's a lot of redundancy. So you'll hire one person and then they'll pass off that information to another person, and they're supposed to be able to pick up exactly where the other person left off. So it's kind of these agencies or firms, and it's not everybody, but you'll see more of that coming out of India. And it's good and it's bad. I mean, it's good that, you know, you're essentially hiring one person, but you've got a lot of backup. But the other part is, you know, sometimes you'll hire somebody and you'll have to kind of repeat what you had said earlier because maybe they didn't pass on all the information. So, but you can hire straight just one person from India as well. So I don't want to, you know, exclude that. And then some of the, you know, Eastern European countries, those are great as well. And they range, their rate is usually typically a little bit higher than the Philippines and India, but they've got a great set of skills as well. And then the US based virtual assistants, obviously typically the highest paid. It's a higher standard of living here, that sort of thing. So obviously they need more money to live, essentially. So and definitely you want to hire the right virtual assistant for the right job. So let's talk about virtual assistants and some of the things that I've personally had them do before for my company, just to give you kind of an idea of what they can do, essentially. When I hire virtual assistants, I typically tend to hire virtual assistants that are more like the office manager style virtual assistants. They are they need to know everything, essentially. They're not, the virtual assistants I hire don't tend to be somebody that you would see like at the front desk at a hotel or at the front desk of maybe an airline, where they are just, you know, hands on the computer and just click, 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 just knocking out data and stuff like that. My virtual assistants tend to have to figure things out, think outside the box. The virtual assistants I tend to hire are, they are kind of a jack of all trades. I hire them and I tell them, be ready for anything. Don't ever get stuck in thinking in one, you know, stream of thought. Things are always going to change with my business, and I need to go where the money is. And so you're going to be doing different things possibly every day. And if I tell you to do it this way one day, it may change the next day. And so that's what I let my virtual assistants know up front, is that you need to be very fluid. That being said, I do hire some virtual assistants that are specialized for certain tasks. So they're just those data people. They just, you know, they can just tune out and just knock out a bunch of data. I hire virtual assistants that are, you know, just illustrate, just do graphic design, just cut the backgrounds out of photos, that sort of thing. And typically those are project-based virtual assistants, and I just pay them on a per project basis. My main assistant, Geraldine, she's the one that's more the office manager type. And she's fantastic. So she is a great virtual assistant. To give you an idea of what I've had virtual assistants do for me, so you can kind of determine what would be good for your business, I've literally had my virtual assistants do everything from call stores to put stuff on hold for me. I've had them data mine and research and, you know, look up stuff and make spreadsheets. I've had them create eBay listings and Poshmark listings and Amazon listings. I've had, you know, them cut the backgrounds out of photos, which I've mentioned. I've had them do some graphic design and illustration. I've had, one time my girlfriend gave me a list of groceries, and I do not cook. So, so a list of groceries, but not really all the quantities. And so I had my virtual assistant call Trader Joe's, put the groceries on hold for me because she cooks, and I just went and picked them up. So she knew all the quantities and all the, you know, so I didn't buy too much, that sort of thing. So I've had my virtual assistants to even do stuff like that. I've had them hop on Craigslist and find somebody to detail my car and schedule an appointment, and they've, you know, negotiated the rate. I've had virtual assistants order supplies for my business. I have that all the time, where I'm just like, hey, I need some more, you know, USPS postal supplies, I need this, I need that, and they keep a list, and so I just either take a picture of something and I send it to them if I can't remember the name or where I got it from, and they just order it, you know, because they keep a running list, or I give them the name and they just go buy it and send it to my warehouse for me. So I do all that sort of stuff too with virtual assistants, but you know, the number one thing, as I mentioned earlier, is I tell my virtual assistants, literally be ready for anything. If I need you to order a pizza, be ready to order a pizza. If I need you to pick out office decor, you know, and go through and pick out a certain theme and make a list of stuff, then I need you to do that. So if you're very upfront with your virtual assistants, then, you know, you're good to go. You don't need to explain down the road that, hey, I know I've been having you do data research for a long time. Now I need you to do this. And they go, wait, what? You know, so, you know, just be very upfront. And if you are, that's the type of virtual assistant you'll get, is you'll get somebody that's very flexible. All right, so let's talk about managing expectations in virtual assistants. So for $2 to $3 an hour, you're probably not going to get a virtual assistant that is a specialist in computer programming and also can answer phones and also can data mine and all that sort of stuff. So for $2 to $3 an hour, you're going to get a virtual assistant that can grow with your company. Okay, so if you've never had a virtual assistant before, you're probably not going to know how many hours to hire the person for and that sort of thing. You kind of have an idea of what you're going to pay them, $2 to $3 an hour when you first hire a virtual assistant if you're not hiring a specialist. But you typically don't know, man, am I going to need this person for how many hours or whatever. So what I would do is I would start small. And I would say, hey, listen, I need a virtual assistant just to help on the side for 10 hours a week or something like that. That'll cost you $20 a week or something similar, you know, just to kind of get an idea of how often you're going to need a virtual assistant. If you know up front that, you know, you're going to need them 40 hours a week, then, you know, go ahead and hire them for 40 hours a week. But when I first started, I hired them on a limited basis. So, and you didn't give the first virtual assistants I had 40 hours a week. I didn't need them. I didn't have that much stuff to give them. So that's what I would do, is I would start small. In addition to figuring out how much time you're going to pay your virtual assistant for up front, you'll want to determine what basic software they need to know to function in your business. So do they need Microsoft Word? Do they need Skype? Do they need to know Slack, Trello, any of that sort of stuff? Do they need to know any basic software that is a deal breaker, that if they don't know it, they can't work in your business? So of course they're not going to know some piece of software that is, you know, specific to your industry unless they've had past experience in there. So a $2 to $3 virtual assistant, you're going to have to expect that you're going to need to teach them a little bit, at least, to know any sort of niche specific software. Now, you'll find out the majority of the virtual assistants already know Microsoft Word, they know Excel, they know all the Microsoft suites, so they know all that sort of stuff. And they've also usually had a history with other pieces of software that you haven't even used probably yourself before. So the people that you're hiring aren't computer illiterate by any means. They are in fact very computer literate. But you just have to kind of manage your expectations and realize that, you know what, this is like having an intern come into my company and I need to take time to show them, you know, a few things with the software before they get started. So don't expect your virtual assistant to know everything there is about everything. So just, you know, keep that in mind. So once you've determined how many hours you're willing to pick up, you know, what basic software they need to know, now is the time to actually write up an ad for your virtual assistant so that they can respond to it. And in writing up your ad, like I said, you want to be very upfront about, you know, how much you're willing to pay and how many hours and that sort of thing. You'll also want to be specific about how you're going to pay them and when you're going to pay them, so that, you know, they know as well that when they're going to get their paycheck. So what I would do is I would open up Microsoft Word and I would start to type out the list of requirements that you need in a virtual assistant. And typically the requirements that I look for must write English well, must be able to use the basic Microsoft suite of programs, you know, like I mentioned before, Word, Excel, that sort of thing. They don't need to be masters at it. They just need to be able to function in it, you know how to add two things together, that in Excel, that sort of thing. And they must have reliable internet access. That is a huge one, obviously, because you know, for the most part, you can't just have somebody, you know, disappear on you in the middle of a job. So they need to have reliable internet. So those are, you know, some of the three things that I look for that are the bare minimum. But on top of it, you know, depending on who I'm hiring, you know, I look at virtual assistants that have a little bit of experience in my area as well. So maybe they've done some things for, you know, somebody in the past. I sell products online, so I'm looking for virtual assistants that have maybe had some experience finding items for Amazon to sell on Amazon. And so I typically throw that in as well. And in my listing as well for the virtual assistants, you know, like I said, I'm upfront about the wage, upfront about the amount of hours, and then I'm typically, you know, here's how often you'll get paid. And if I need to pay them a specific way, then I'm upfront about that as well. So I try to just lay it all out there. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I don't want a bunch of people applying that are asking, you know, dramatic wages and that sort of thing. I'm looking for a specific type of person. So now it's time to, where do I get the virtual assistants? So, all right, probably what a lot of you have already been waiting for and might have just skipped to this portion. So there's three places that I go to get virtual assistants, and I'll go one by one and I'll explain you know, the good and bad and ugly of each service and let you pick, you know, which one you want to use. And like I said, these are services that I use, so I'm not affiliated with them as of this recording, and these are just ones that I've used in the past. So the current one that I use is onlinejobs.ph. It's not the only one that I use, but it is currently my favorite. And so it is onlinejobs.ph, and the PH obviously stands for the Philippines. So anybody hired off of this site is going to be a worker in the Philippines or a virtual assistant in the Philippines. You're not going to get anybody else. So there is a monthly fee that is associated with placing ads and hiring from this site, and that fee is you can cancel at any time. So it's not ongoing for the year. It's just basically you pay it, you can post whatever you want, hire, and then once you hire, you can stop the fee, or you can keep it going if you know, want to, essentially, and if you think you're going to hire more people, or if you just want to keep it going because you don't know if this one's going to work out. and it's your first one. So the fee for onlinejobs.ph is $69 a month. And that's the one I use. There's a higher paid one, and then I think there's a free one below that. So that's what I use, and basically that will let you do, I think, like 3 job posts, and you can put it up and you can reply directly to people and that sort of thing. And that's my favorite one. The good thing about onlinejobs.ph is they do have a kind of vetting system or numbering system that they use to determine if somebody is the real deal. And you know, you're kind of taking that number as they've done their research, you know, but then again, you don't know how thorough they are, or, you know, can they determine a fake ID, that sort of thing. So, but you hope that they can. So if you're going to use that number, then the higher the number as the next to the person's description, the more apt they are to be the real deal. Because to be quite honest, I mean, there's people out there that, you know, do just like real life. There's people out there that do fake stuff. And so with onlinejobs.ph, you're getting somebody that's probably closer to the real deal than, you know, as far as an actual person goes. Whether or not they are misrepresenting their skills, that's a whole nother thing. But as far as this is the actual person you're dealing with, there's a number for that, and that's what's good about onlinejobs.ph. So on onlinejobs.ph, you post your ad, and then you wait for the replies, and then you can weed it out. The good thing about onlinejobs.ph is it's just between you and them. They're not in the middle. They don't handle the payment. They can handle the payment if you want them to, but you don't have to use their payment system at all. It is you are working out between them, and then you are essentially taking them off the platform, and they are your virtual assistant. So that's the good thing about onlinejobs.ph. On this site, when you're looking at people's profiles, they typically have a suggested hourly wage in their description. They've usually got a basic breakdown of skills as well, and that sort of thing. That wage is negotiable. So it may be too high, may be too low, that sort of thing. You can post a job on Online Jobs and just wait for replies and wait to see who replies. Or you can actually go through the search and you can find people that fit your criteria, and you can suggest that they apply for your position. You can send them a little notice that says, hey, listen, I read your profile, looks great, I'd love you to apply. And so you can do that as well, so you can essentially recruit people. So that's what's great about Online Jobs PH. The bad side is it costs money, but honestly, 69 bucks isn't gonna hopefully kill you. But so that's the bad side. You can hire any shape or fashion as far as like any number of hours. You can hire for a project position. It is between you and them, so that is the good part. So anything you like, and other than that, I found it's a great service, and it's the one I tend to lean towards when I'm looking for a virtual assistant that is kind of a jack of all trades. Now, you can also hire virtual assistants that are specific to a task on there as well. If you just need somebody that just designs t-shirts, if you just need somebody that makes phone calls and just telemarkets and that sort of thing, you can do all that as well. So you can hire specifically to what you need, essentially. And so that's the #1 site I recommend for Philippine virtual assistants. So the #2 site that I recommend for hiring virtual assistants is Upwork. Upwork I've used in the past, I still use every once in a while. Upwork, you're gonna get a range. You will get a range of people from the Philippines to US-based virtual assistants. The posting of the ad and all of the correspondence needs to go through Upwork. So that is, one of the things that they demand, because they don't want you kind of cutting them out. The payment goes through Upwork as well. So if you're going to pay your virtual assistant, that goes through Upwork as well. Upwork takes a little percentage out of that, and that's their cut. Upwork, essentially, they want to control the flow, essentially. The upside to Upwork is there's no monthly fee. You can just post ads, as far as I know. And so you can just post, and there's no sort of a monthly fee and that sort of thing. Now, like I said, you're going to get everything from somebody that works in the Philippines, India, Eastern Europe, to US workers. I like Upwork in the sense that everything's kind of managed as far as, even the files and the correspondence. It's all kind of in one place, and you've got record of everything. So if something goes wrong, you do have some recourse. Having recourse is a good thing, especially if you get an employee that is just, not cutting it, that sort of thing. And you're like, dude, I paid you, $50 to get this done, and you haven't done it. That's the good thing about Upwork is you can talk to them. They do have support, that sort of thing. You can work it out, and whatever conclusion they agree upon and you agree upon, then you do have that. Because what they do is when you pay them, they kind of hold the money in escrow, and you can also pay out milestones as well. So you can essentially, if you wanted to put $100 in and say, hey, listen, this is just a task-based job. $100 when you finish, when you hit this milestone, this milestone, this milestone, you'll get, $20, $20, that sort of thing. So you can pay as you go, and it will pull the money out of escrow. And the good thing is they see that the money is already there. So it's not, you're not making an empty promise. They're not going, dude, well, does this money really exist? They can see the money as an escrow. They're safe, you're safe, and you can pay on an ongoing basis if you want to. So that's the good thing about Upwork. The thing I don't really like Upwork is I don't want a small percentage of my money taken off the top. Although, that happens with PayPal, so I guess what am I complaining about? But I want to be in direct contact with my virtual assistant. I don't want anybody in between. It's just, I want it to just be me and them. So that's what I prefer. But to each their own. Upwork, you can also hire US-based assistants as well. The cool part about the US-based assistants is they've, hopefully grown up with a lot of the same culture and the same sort of, in general, things that you run into being in the United States. So that is an advantage. Now, you do have to pay more for a US-based virtual assistant. But if you're doing marketing, if you're doing some design work, that sort of thing, it is nice to have somebody that knows what you're talking about. I'm not saying that the virtual assistants in the other areas don't, but I guess what I'm saying is you have here's an example. I needed to make slogans to go on t-shirts, and I was reselling them online. So I needed somebody that, could understand what's funny, could understand the political climate in the United States, just knew all these little ins and outs and things that you didn't have to explain. So this was more apparent for me, or this was very apparent for me, when I had my worker from the Philippines go, hey, listen, I'd like you to take a crack at this and see if you can come up with funny slogans. She came up with stuff that, it just didn't match. And I can't fault her for it at all. I mean, it would be like me trying to come up with something that is funny to people that grew up in the Philippines. And so I can't fault her for that, but that's an area where it's, man, you need a US-based assistant. You just need one. Some of the other stuff too is marketing. I mean, that understands the nuances of social media, and you need somebody that understands what the latest and greatest thing is and where we're headed and stuff like that. Unless you've got somebody that's experienced specifically in marketing in the Philippines and understands all those nuances, then you're kind of left with telling somebody, tasks, do this, do that, do this, do that. And you're more looking for somebody that's going, oh, hey, here's where we're heading in social media. We should go this way. Now, you can definitely find somebody in the Philippines that can do all that too, but that's just something with, you know, US-based virtual assistants. You're paying more, but they're here and they're in the middle of it and they see what's happening. So that's an advantage. And so that's one thing you'll find on Upwork is you'll find, you know, US-based virtual assistants, and they're at a higher wage, but you know, it's worth it if it gets the job done. So that's Upwork. So that's just kind of what I wanted you to know about that. It's I still use it, and it's not like I don't use it. It's just I tend to hire you know, from the Philippines. So the last and final website that I use to hire people is Craigslist Philippines. And believe it or not, there is a Craigslist Philippines, just like here in the US. And you'll get people on there that are, you know, just applying for jobs like they would here, or just answering, you know, project-based jobs or anything like that. And it's the same deal. You're basically putting up an ad. This is what, you know, I'd like to hire for. This is what I'm willing to pay, that sort of thing. So Craigslist Philippines, it's strictly between you and them. That's the good part. The bad part is there's not a face to the name, essentially. So you do have to do a little bit more vetting and trying to figure out, you know, if the person's legit, that sort of thing. But you will tend to get somebody that is more negotiable as far as wage goes. You may tend to find somebody that has a little bit more experience, that's willing to work for a little less money. You may find that on the Craigslist Philippines, so that is good. And the reason you do find those sort of workers on Craigslist Philippines is because not everybody knows every website that's out there. They may not even know where to apply other than Craigslist. So there may be that. They also may be applying on Craigslist Philippines because there's too much competition on some of these other websites. You know, so the onlinejobs.ph, that's tended to be pushed a little bit more, and so, you know, they may just be, I'm just going to apply here, and it's, you know, between us and them, and you know, I honestly don't know if the virtual assistants have to pay a fee on their end to get on the Online Jobs PH. So there may be that too. You know, I honestly don't know. To be verified and listed and that sort of thing, they may have to pay a fee to get on there. So there's that. So, but you know, like I said, Craigslist is a little bit of a crapshoot. But you may get a little bit more bang for your buck. It's between you and them, and that sort of thing. So that is another option, and you literally just post, you know, the way you post on any other website. There's, you know, there's no moderator per se. If you pay them and they don't do their work, then it is what it is, you know. So there's that. But you know, I've had virtual assistants from Craigslist Philippines, and they've done great, you know. So it's just, you know, it's I can't fault it, you know. It's just people are looking for jobs, and sometimes, you know, the only place you're looking is Craigslist Philippines. So there you go. So that is option number 3, and that's the final place that I go to hire. So that being said, I go ahead and I post the ad, and I wait for replies. As the replies come in, I usually give it a couple days. I usually don't give it weeks, because people can get hired in the meantime while you're just kind of, you know, chilling, waiting for responses to come in. You can typically expect quite a few responses to come in, because to be quite honest, in the Philippines especially, I mean, people are looking for jobs. I mean, I have a potential virtual assistant that has been messaging me for like a year looking for a job. So they're out there. And so it's not unusual to get, you know, 40 to 60 replies to a job ad. You know, it's just not. So what you want to do is, you know, as these replies come in, you want to treat it just, you know, like you would if you were hiring at any company. You would want to go through, read them, see if they're a good fit, see if the way that they respond to you is professional. Is it, you know, is the English good as well? Because that's typically, that's very important in my business. So if that's something that's important in your business, you know, make sure it's well written. and you know, that they have listened to what you have put in the ad for them to be hired. You'll get generic responses. I mean, just like, you know, hiring here in the US, you go to these websites and, you know, people get tired of filling stuff out, and so they just send, you know, generic responses like, oh, I read your ad, it's wonderful, da, da, da. Here is your, you know, here is my resume. And you're like, dude, you don't have any of the skills that I asked for. So just be aware of that. So it's very real life. It's very like, you're gonna get people that apply that are overstating their abilities. You'll get people that just respond generically, and then you'll, you know, respond to them, and you'll find out that it's just like, dude, you're not a good fit at all. But then you'll get some really qualified candidates, and you're like, dude, what are you applying for my job for? So you'll get that too. But honestly, I mean, you know, people just want to work. So, you know, so that's kind of what to expect when you apply. So that first go round that you get of applicants, start to weed out, you know, who you're interested in and who you're not interested in, and make a list, or, you know, save them as favorites depending on the platform. And then start asking them questions, you know, start asking them, you know, like for more information, or what else, what other software have you used other than the ones I require? And, you know, get to know kind of where they've worked in the past, that sort of thing. Because, you know, some of the stuff I found out that there are virtual assistants that have, you know, worked in so many different fields that they have other fields that are applicable that you wouldn't have even thought of. Like, for instance, my last virtual assistant, Geraldine, my current one actually, she used to work for somebody that was in my line of business, but in the UK. So out in the United Kingdom. So she is familiar with UK websites, how to find products in the UK, that sort of thing. And that was like an added bonus, you know, as well as, I don't do drop shipping, but she, you know, is familiar with drop shipping programs as well. So that was all stuff that I just came along with the package that I didn't expect. It's just an added bonus. So if you inquire a little bit about what their past history is and where they worked before and what other software they used, you might find out that, man, they don't know a lot necessarily about, you know, your business, but they do know about, you know, other businesses that actually, and maybe that's the direction you're heading. So, you know, that's just an added bonus, and you're like, oh man, I could teach them this small stuff. I'm glad that they know this. So, so keep that in mind when you're asking them questions. So start to weed out your applicants, keep a list, and then when you get down to about 5, 10 applicants, that sort of thing, time to start the second round. And so typically what I'll tell them is, hey, you know, the reason I'm asking you questions is because you're headed into the second hiring round, where we will actually, you know, ask you even more questions, but you're down to the final 5, final 10, that sort of thing. So you're looking at getting hired. So we really value your time and responses and that sort of thing. So done with first round, second round's up. So what I do in second round is I tend to create some sort of a quiz or set of instructions that I would like them to fill out and follow and answer and that sort of thing. I typically set it up as a Google document, and I typically just send a link so that way they can download it. And I usually, you know, set up the Google Doc so that it's just downloadable, it's not editable, and they can just copy it and then send you a link themselves. So, but here's what I'm doing in this second round, is I am testing them out to see that they can follow instructions. I'm not really, you know, testing them to see that they know, you know, necessarily specific stuff. I mean, it's okay, but I want to see if these people can follow instructions, essentially. So if I say, hey, do this, send this, do it this way, do whatever, I want to see that. And then I also put in questions where I'm looking at them to think for themselves too. And also I'm looking at if they get stuck, that they're not afraid to ask questions. So when I designed the quiz with specific information about my company, just basics, like here is this number, here is this rank, is this good or bad? Does this mean this will sell fast on Amazon? or sell slow on Amazon. Just the basic stuff. And then I gave instructions, and then I also put some questions in there that are essentially, if you get stuck on something, what do you do? And so I wanted to see what they did. So for instance, I gave them a scenario, and in the scenario I said, for those of you, I mean, this may be off topic, but for those of you who know about, uploading files and whatnot, I've got some JPEGs right out of the camera. I've got 2 websites, Poshmark and eBay. I'm giving you the same set of photos. One website takes 2 seconds to upload a photo. Another website takes 5 minutes a photo to upload. What do you do? And so I wanted to see, do they go research the issue? Do they just put it on the back burner and not do it? Do they do it and wait it out? 5 minutes of photo? Or do they come ask me and say, hey, listen, I've noticed that this is very unusual. It shouldn't be taking 5 minutes of photo. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for them to do a little bit of research, and then I'm looking for them to, if they can't find the answer, come talk to me and stuff like that. And I'd more than happy to answer it. A previous virtual assistant I had, and this was a scenario that I mentioned that was something that I had happen with a previous virtual assistant. The previous virtual assistant, she'd been uploading photos forever, and then all of a sudden these photos were taking 5 minutes a pop. So I was uploading 10, 12 photos an item, so she's into an hour a listing, so which is outrageous. So to make one listing on like eBay that takes an hour, you would hope somebody would mention that to you. And so, and I don't know what's happening. I don't know. It looks, from my perspective, it looks like she's just dilly-dallying and taking way too long and that sort of thing. So, I asked her, I said, hey, well, what's going on? And she said, sorry, I'll try and do it faster. I mean, which is great, but what I need her to do is I need her to research it, go, hey, identify that there's an issue, research it, and then, mention it to me so that I can look into it myself and say, whoa, this is weird, rather than me just blindly think that she's might not be doing her job. So that's what I was looking for. So when, to bring it full circle, when I, went to hire Geraldine, I made sure to put in questions that they needed to ask a second question out of me, or they needed to ask for help, or they needed to research it a little bit, that sort of thing. So it wasn't as cut and dry. The final answer wasn't black and white. There wasn't, I don't want to say not a correct answer, but there was definitely an answer I was looking for, and that's what I was looking for out of them. So those are some of the things that I put in there in that second round. And so, it was interesting. The responses that I got back, some people didn't follow. There was one guy first out of the gates, had everything filled out, awesome, all wrong. Totally screwed it up. So he was gone. The next bunch of applicants that applied, they were off. They were like, their answers were off. They were just like, honestly, some of them were just like, well, I just waited out, and stuff like that. And that's not what I was looking for an answer for that, scenario I told you about. But Geraldine answered every question correct, like all the way down the row. And I would say she was probably one out of about 15 people that answered everything and 100%. And so, obviously that's why she made it into the third round. So I always do 3 rounds. And so it gets smaller, smaller, smaller. And by the third round, there's only 2 people. And so, it all happens very fast. I don't want to drag it along. So, this is all within 2 or 3 days of me making the posting that I'm making a decision. And that's one thing that, you want to keep in mind is you need to be ready to hire. And, when you put up this ad. So, don't drag people along. Don't, just, spend a lot of time. You're too busy to get to it, that sort of thing. Be ready to hire. And, as far as hiring goes, this is all on a trial basis. So, that's another thing you want to be upfront about is that, I'm hiring here because, and I'm going to try you out, I'm hiring to try you out. And so, we'll see how you do. And, you know, it's almost like probationary period. So that's one thing, you know, you want to keep in mind too. So it's not the end all be all. When you hire somebody, you're not stuck with them for life, but you do want to be ready to, you know, pull the trigger and hire somebody and not drag them along. Okay, let's talk hourly pay versus salary versus project position pay. So when I first started off, I did salary-based pay, and I just said, hey, I'm paying for this amount of hours for this amount of time, and I think it was 20 hours a week is what I was paying for originally. But I had 2 VAs, so I was essentially together, they were getting the full-time 40 hours. But I did salary-based, and so I would say, hey, listen, these are around the hours I expect, and these are the things that I would like to get done in that amount of time period. So that was great. It worked really well in the beginning, but later I learned that hourly pay actually worked better for me. And the reason being is because hourly, I found a way to track hourly, and then also hourly, they would basically clock in and clock out. What happened with salary is kind of just like what happens whenever somebody gets on salary. At first, they're killing it and they're doing awesome. Later on, one of 2 things can happen. Either they're exceeding the amount of hours, they're working overtime and not getting paid for it, or most of the time what actually happens is they start to do less work and get paid as if they were doing the full amount of work. And so that's what actually ended up happening with a couple of my virtual assistants. Is I noticed my stuff was falling by the wayside a little bit, more errors than usual, and you know, I was checking in and I'm like, what's going on? Why is there so many errors and whatnot? And you know, they would say, oh, sorry, we'll be more diligent about everything, and then we'd go about it, and some of it would be okay, but there was definitely a difference. And what I found out with the salary is that they started picking up other work from other people, so they essentially started to work 2 full-time jobs. Well, my stuff was falling by the wayside, and I just wasn't getting the same quality work as I was getting. They didn't really think that they needed to tell me about that. You know, probably they just needed the extra money, and so, you know, do they need to? Are they required to tell me about that? No, but if you pick up a whole extra shift and your work's suffering in one of your jobs, you would hope that somebody would say, I picked up a lot of extra work, so that's why maybe I need to cut down on the extra work. So I ended up, based on the salary and the work that I was getting, I actually had to let those 2 VAs go. Now they still had a full-time job to go to, so no big loss, but I had to readjust. And so when I did readjust, I went to hourly pay. And when I went to hourly pay, I found that to be much better. But with hourly pay, you do need a way to track progress. And so what I use to track progress is a program called Time Doctor. And Time Doctor is a piece of software. I think it only costs about $2.99 a month. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the ballpark. And Time Doctor, they clock in, it records their mouse movements, it records how many minutes they spend on various tabs and on various websites. It also does a screen capture, and you set the interval, so whether it's every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it is, it will take a snapshot of their screen, and you can actually go back and roll through those snapshots to make sure that they aren't, just on some crazy website that they're not supposed to be on and whatnot. But this has worked a lot better for me, and especially, with my current VA. She's on task and she clocks in and she's doing her job, and then when she's not doing her job, then she's not getting paid because she's clocked out. She can even clock in on her phone if she wanted to, if she was doing research on her phone. She can, if for some reason the hours are messed up, like she forgot to clock in, or she's doing stuff that is that Time Doctor can't record, like maybe she's maybe she's not making phone calls, but if she was making phone calls, she could actually submit an adjustment request, and that comes to you, and you can have it automatically approved, or you can approve it yourself. But that's how I keep track, and then I just pay based on that. And you can go through, and you can go through as often as you want, but I go through every 2 weeks. and I take a look at the total amount of hours, and I just total it up for 2 weeks. I include the weekends too, because sometimes she pops in and she you know, will work on the weekend when I wasn't expecting, but then she'll, you know, work a little bit less during the week or whatever. But yeah, so I just pay based on that, and like I said, I send everything by PayPal, so that's how she gets paid. And so far there hasn't been any major discrepancies or anything like that. So I really find that the hourly works the best for me. And then of course there's project pay. So project pay is you get paid either based on when the project is completed, or you get paid at milestones if it's a longer project. I have a few different assistants that get paid based on the project. And a guy I have in India, he cuts the backgrounds out of photos. And so if you don't know, when you put a product on Amazon, the product needs to have an all-white background. And there's different ways to achieve that, but I actually have him cut it out and make it pure white in the background. So it's a lot of little tedious Photoshop work, and he does that, you know, fast and very good and inexpensive. And so that's on a per project basis. So he charges me, you know, 50 cents a photo or 25 cents a photo, or you know, whatever, depending on how complicated it is. And so that's project pay. And then, like I said, if it's a longer project, then obviously, you know, do some milestones in there so that they're not waiting forever to get paid. Because really the worst thing that you can do is, you know, I don't want to say string somebody along, but you know, they need the money, and they need it in you know, a relatively timely fashion, essentially. Not right away, but you know, don't delay, you know, don't grossly delay when you pay them. Okay, let's talk about communication and organization with your virtual assistant. What I use to communicate is I use a program called Slack. It's S-L-A-C-K. And Slack is built for managing teams. It's free to use. And what you can do in Slack is you can essentially make different channels in Slack. And channels, if you think of them like, remember the old style walkie-talkie CB radios? You can switch to different channels, and different people are on those different channels, so that you're not, you know, talking to everybody, that and you're only talking to the people that need that information. So that's what Slack does, is you can create different channels within your Slack, and those different channels can be based on topic. They can be, you know, just general channels. They can be just, you know, orders you've received. It can really be anything. So that's how I communicate with my virtual assistant. And also within those, when you're having conversations in those channels, you can have threaded conversations. So that's what I like, is because if I'm talking about something specifically, I can actually click on that item and I can have a conversation about that particular item, and have a little thread where that conversation follows that item. So this is why this comes in handy. So if you ever talk to somebody on Instant Messenger, it is linear. It is basically you guys just talk and you have a conversation, and it goes down and down and down the screen. Well, if you need to go back and recall something up above, you have to scroll up, and sometimes it's quite a ways. Sometimes it disappears eventually. Sometimes it like jumps, like as you scroll up. I don't know if you've ever seen this on a phone, but you jump and it'll jump past the topic, and then you need to come back down to find it. It is a complete pain. What Slack does is it lets you have the conversation in time, so linear, but I can just, you know, like say if I mentioned USPS supplies, hey, can you order USPS supplies? And later on I forgot to tell her what USPS supplies. So rather than have this whole long conversation and put it at the bottom, I'll go back to where those USPS supplies were mentioned. I'll click on it. It will open up a little chat window, and it will let me talk right in there and go, hey, I meant for you to order this size box and this quantity and this. Boom, leave it there. You can continue on with your conversation. She'll see it in her dashboard in Slack, and she will you know, see the thread. So that's what's nice about it is never do we have to go, what are you talking about? Where are you at on this? What is the, you know, or if she asks me a question, I know exactly what she's talking about because it's right in the thread or right in that channel. So that is a huge advantage over like email, messenger, stuff like that, because it's just way too linear. It's way too, you know, I mean, if you jump anywhere in the conversation, you're like lost. So that's what I like about Slack. Slack is free to use, like I said. Just go to slack.com and you can go ahead and sign up for an account and use it. A ton of businesses use it, so it's not something that is, you know, oddball or unusual or anything like that. It's just, it's what I use to manage the virtual assistants, and I have all my virtual assistants in there, and you can also direct message virtual assistants as well from there. So if you didn't want to talk to everybody, you could just talk to one. You can call attention to somebody, you can forward stuff, you can add files, just all kinds of stuff. It's fantastic. There's another program out there called Homebase. Homebase you pay for. I've never used it personally, but it's team management software, and that's kind of like what you want. Even if you have one virtual assistant, you're going to have all kinds of different topics and all different kinds of things that come up in your business, and so it's great to just, you know, not have to rehash old stuff. Just go, please do this, and that's it. And so that is fantastic. If you're into managing tasks and keeping track of specific tasks, like you have a lot of almost like projects in your business, you might consider using Trello, and that's Trello.com. Trello is something I started off with originally, and if I had multiple VAs that were doing multiple different tasks that I don't think I could keep track of in Slack, I would probably use Trello. Trello is another free thing to use. It also has an app on your phone. Slack has an app on your phone as well. But Trello is card-based and task-based, so you can essentially think of Trello almost like file folders. So if you like things nice and neat in file folders, you know, all the conversations, all of the files, everything that has to do with that particular item, Trello might be something you like to use. It's very visual. You can make lists in Trello, and then you essentially make what are called cards. And on those cards, you put the task, and then you can have whole conversations in those cards, and they're almost like file folders, and the lists are almost like filing cabinets, and you just move them list to list to list. Trello and Slack are compatible, so you can use those hand in hand as well. And as you make tasks in Trello, you can have them report to Slack and vice versa. So it sounds a little complicated, I know, but it's all just about management and keeping track of things. And things, you know, I used Trello for literally task-based things. I would be like, you know, hey, I need some office decor. And we would have a whole conversation in there, and then they would put you know, the links or the links to the Google Docs and include pictures and everything. So then I knew when that got done, I essentially, one of the lists was a done list. And so they would move it over to the done list. And then, and for me, this is kind of long, but for me, each list was the name of an assistant. So I'd put the name of the assistant, they would be able to go on their tasks, and when they got it done, they would move it to the done list. So hopefully that makes sense. If you've never used Trello, that probably was like, what? So anyway, so that's just, you know, something else that you can use to keep track of your VAs. For instant messaging back and forth, especially when you are first hiring, I tend to use Skype. And Skype will let you actually do essentially a message with them. You can do instant message back and forth. Most of the people have Skype. Depending on where you are picking up your virtual assistant from, they may or may not have access to things like Facebook and that sort of thing. You know, like especially China. China's pretty shut down on any sort of Google related items, Facebook, that sort of thing. So, but you'll find the majority of the people like in China have access to Skype. And so you guys can have messages back and forth. You can send files. If you need to do a video call, you can do that. So that's what I'll use for communication back and forth initially. And then sometimes just, you know, it depends on who I'm talking to. Sometimes all we do is Skype. So I prefer Slack, but Skype is good as well. So you can do Skype. Another thing to mention about Skype, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to talk about it or not, but you can set up Skype Manager. So if you ever need your virtual assistants to be able to make local phone calls inside the United States or into other countries for almost free, you can set up Skype Manager. And I say almost free because you have to get a dedicated phone number on Skype, which I think is $11, $12 a month. And then there's like another $3 a month will give them unlimited calls in the US. And so if you set up Skype Manager, they'll have a phone number, and they can have a US based phone number. So myself in particular, I'll give my VA LA based phone number if my VA speaks English, which Geraldine does not. She writes English but does not speak it. But the other virtual assistants I've had are able to speak English. And so I would literally set them up with an LA number. People could call them just like they would call another phone number, and then they would either get a voicemail or they would pick up, and then they could turn around and call inside the US, and unlimited minutes, unlimited whatever, and literally on the caller ID it would say Los Angeles. So that's a way for your virtual assistants to make calls inside the US. So I don't know if that was the appropriate time to mention that at all, but that's another tool that you can use for communication. And it may be a communication tool for you as well, because you may just want to give your VA a call while you're on the road and just talk something out. So yeah, maybe that was the appropriate time. Okay, let's talk about password management and also credit cards and that sort of thing. So if you ever need to give your virtual assistant a password, I highly suggest using LastPass. It's LASTPASS, and the website's just lastpass.com. I think it costs you about $2 or $3 a month, but it's a password management software. It's super cool because your virtual assistants never actually see your password. They have what's called a vault, and they set up LastPass on their computer, you set up LastPass on your computer, you manage all your passwords, you manage who has access to them, whether it's a group of people or an individual, and then you can send your password, and you don't need to send everything, but you can just send individual username and passwords through LastPass to their vault. And so they'll get an email, they'll click on it, that will put it into their vault, and then they can actually log into those websites and never need to know your username or password. So it's even a way to, you know, if you give them their own username and password, it's also a way to do that as well. But I found it, I've never had an issue at all, period, with any of my virtual assistants as far as abusing passwords or usernames or anything like that. But, you know, I had my last virtual assistants for a couple years, and I never thought about it because they were so trustworthy that I never thought about what if I ever got a bad VA, you know? And so, you know, it's the real world. You do have to worry about stuff like that. And so I thought, you know, what would I do if I gave out all my username and passwords? Do I have to then go in individually to every website and change everything? You know, how do I shut everything down fast enough? You know, the whole deal. It's just like when you quit a job at a company and you have access to all this stuff, they shut you down immediately. So LastPass is good for that. So if you ever need to just remove permission, you can just remove it. You can remove it from a whole group, you can remove it from an individual, whatever, and they have no clue what they used to log in with. It was just, it just worked. And so that is what I use to manage passwords, and I highly suggest it. That's a great one. I think there's also one called 1Password too, so if you want to look into an alternative, I haven't used the alternative, but I think that is one as well. You could also just Google password management, and I think that you'll be able to find something to use. Okay, credit cards. Let's talk about credit cards. There may come a time in your company where you need your assistant to make purchases on your behalf, whether it's supplies, it's, you know, maybe they're your travel agent. So, you know, I don't know. So there may come a time. The best thing I've found for this is called PEX, and it's PEX.com. And PEX is like a virtual credit card. You're able to create credit cards and accounts for your assistants with their name, and they get a credit card number and the whole deal. And you can even get a physical card mailed to you as well if you needed to. And I haven't done that, but you know, maybe you want to send a card to your VA in the Philippines to, I mean, maybe they've got a bad computer, or they need to make a purchase, or they need to, you know, do whatever, and you want to send them a card to use for emergencies, you know. I mean, and so maybe there's a reason for that, but for the most part, you know, just having the number and having the expiration and the, you know, the number on the back, the 3-digit code on the back, maybe that's good enough. But PEX, the advantage to PEX is it's virtual, it's not connected to your main account, so they can't overspend, they can't, you know, run anything up. You can actually set limits as well, and limits to either be denied or require approval. So if your assistants, you know, maybe you're giving them gas money, or I don't know what, but maybe you haven't purchased supplies, but there's no way on earth they're ever going to order $100 or more of supplies, and you want that to be your cap. If they ever try to make a purchase over and above that, then it will either decline them, or you can have them submit it for approval. And so you can actually give them limits in various categories. So that's what I found for credit cards. That one's kind of straightforward, kind of short and sweet. I believe there is a monthly fee as well for that to maintain and use their credit cards, but I mean, it's worth it, you know. You gotta keep track of everything, and you know, make sure there's no overspending and they're not connected directly to your account. So look into it. All right, let's talk internet reliability with your virtual assistants. Okay, and I'm just going to talk the Philippines since that's where I tend to hire the majority of my virtual assistants. I haven't had any issues with India so far. China, not issues necessarily with internet. China has been mainly issues with access to certain types of software, and you know, just stuff we use day to day. It's pretty shut down in China, so it may work at first and then stop. So that's things specifically related to China. But let's talk about internet connectivity and access to the internet regarding your virtual assistant. So in the Philippines, having internet is, you know, a luxury, and it is what a lot of the VAs rely on to make, you know, their living, because it's hard to find jobs. So, but what you need to know is that the Philippines has two types of climates, or two types of seasons, climates, whatever you want to call it, wet and dry. So it's essentially, it's a tropical island, and it's got wet or it's got dry. So when it gets extremely wet out, including, you know, monsoons and typhoons and that sort of thing, you may have issues with internet connectivity. So this is why I'm telling you this, is because all of a sudden, if your VA drops off the face of the earth and you're like, where are you? What's going on? And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, my internet, you know, went out. And you're like, what? You know, because we don't have those problems necessarily. They do, and it's a reality. So when it rains or it gets crazy, then they may lose internet connectivity. Now, it usually takes a day or two to get back up. That's usually how long it takes cable companies to kick into action and get things done. And they typically don't have a lot of ways to communicate with you when that happens. So I just want you to know that is part of life. It is part of having a virtual assistant. It's part of their reality. And it is, they'll be back online. Now, you do want to you know, be cognizant of people that abuse that are just like, oh, I've got no internet, and this is like the 20th time this month. So you do want to be, you know, cognizant of people abusing it, but for the most part, it is what it is. This is a question you do want to ask up front when you're hiring, as well as how reliable is your internet. And typically what you'll find out is about June to say October, kind of maybe bleeding into November, that's monsoon, typhoon stuff. December's fantastic as far as weather goes usually. You know, good half of November is awesome, which is good because November, December, that's typically your prime time as far as, you know, at least it is what I do. It's, you know, it's Christmas time. Everybody's buying stuff. So, so that's fine. And, you know, your VA, like I said, they're not going to disappear for a month, but they may drop off the earth for a day or two. It shouldn't be a regular occurrence, but June brings monsoon. So, you know, so just watch out for that. I would not suggest that you tell your VA to go to a public internet access point and hop on with all your private information and that sort of thing. They do have hackers and whatnot there. So, and my VA happens to be very aware of that. And so I would just write it out, and I would just, you know, just go with the flow on that, because you definitely don't want them to go to a McDonald's with, you know, internet and jump on there with, you know, nothing in place to protect you. I mean, there are things you can put in place. You could use what's called a VPN, which is a virtual private network. Those are good. Those can protect you. They can keep your assistant kind of anonymous when they get online. And so that is a way that they could get onto a public network and use some things. I do have a VPN. It's ExpressVPN. Again, monthly fee. I think it's super low. I think it's like $2 or something. But I do use ExpressVPN. It's a nice paid VPN. And another thing, I guess, this kind of segues into VPNs is if you ever need your assistant to be able to access a website that is, you need to be based in the US to access it, because their IP address, the IP address is showing up that they're based in the Philippines, then you can use a VPN. And another way to think about a VPN, and you can, I'll do a bad job explaining this, but jump on YouTube VPN and those instructional videos on like, what is a VPN? But basically you can choose where you're located. So I don't know if you've ever run into a site like, you know, you may be looking on YouTube Canada and it says, because of your region, you cannot access this. If you use a VPN and you select a city in Canada, you can access that website. And it's just regional restrictions is all it is. You're not doing anything, you know, crazy or trying to hack anything or anything like that. You're just trying to get around, you know, regional restrictions. And so every once in a while, my VA will need to be able to access a website here in the US, and they'll just be like, no. And so that's when we use a VPN. So that's that. So that's internet connectivity. Just be ready for June-ish. Okay, let's talk about bonuses and raises and that sort of thing. There's a thing in the Philippines called the 13th month. And if you ever want to see your VA just suddenly disappear and not really talk to you anymore, and you need to go find a new VA, I then skip the 13th month. So back in the day in the US, you used to get a Christmas bonus. Companies rarely do it anymore. You're lucky if you get a $25 check to a grocery store nowadays if you're working for a company. It just is what it is. But back in the day, you used to get a nice Christmas bonus so that you could, you know, buy gifts for your family and the whole deal because the company could afford it and that sort of thing. That still exists in the Philippines. So it's called the 13th month. And so the 13th month, basically come December, you need to pay them an extra 1 month's salary. So that's what it is. And it's customary, it's I would even go as far to say as it is mandatory, but it's something you need to do. And it's just like tipping your waitress or waiter, that same deal. You know, yeah, you can skate out the door, but if they remember your name, then, you know, could be bad. So your VA, they're expecting that. They may not say it, but they're expecting it. And so there's all different ways to calculate it. I just do what's easy. And for me, what's been the easiest is I really need my VA to be on the ball in November, because I'm going into the Christmas season, into the holidays. And being that I sell products online, I really need them to be there November, you know? And so what I do is I tell my VAs that we will take whatever you made in November, and that will be your 13th month. So that's what I tell them. And typically I give the 13th month bonus at the start of December. Some people wait until the end, but I give it at the start. I mean, I figure, you know, my VA has 2 kids and she needs to buy things for the holidays, and I just give it up front, and I've never had an issue giving it up front. And, you know, that way things are a little easier going into the holidays. So, and I can afford it. So that's what I do. But yeah, there's all different ways to figure the 13th month. You can look it up and do whatever calculation works best for you. But I would just, you know, let them know, give them an idea kind of how their bonus is going to be figured. Just, you know, the same way you would want to know, essentially, you know, so that it's something that you can rely on. And like I said, make sure you give that 13th month, because like I said, if you can imagine always getting a bonus and then all of a sudden just not getting one, and no explanation, you know, you'd be okay, but, you know, you might start looking for a new job. So, you know, just be aware of that. So let's talk raises, when to give your VA a raise and how much to give them a raise. So the whole reason that you're hiring a virtual assistant is because you need help in your business, and you probably can't afford to bring on somebody that is, you know, top dollar pay, just because, you know, your company can't afford it and that sort of thing. So, but you should expect to give your virtual assistants a bonus of some sort. Typically after a year, you know, you can give them anywhere from, you know, 25 cents to 50 cents to 75 cents an hour additional. You know, if they're just killing it and you don't want to lose them ever, you can give them $1. And this, like I said, this is my own personal opinion. And so it is 100% up to you, but I don't tend to drive wages towards full-time US wages, just because and this is I'm talking about, you know, the $2, $3 an hour VAs, because it's just, I can't afford it. You know, you can't afford it as a business or as a company, that sort of thing. So, but if you can't afford it, man, by all means do it. If you have a virtual assistant that is just killing it and they are outdoing everybody, and you might as well, you know. But customary, you know, 50 cents to $1 after a year for hourly pay is plenty good. So that's kind of when you should do it. And like I said, I kind of always give everybody a heads up. So I'm very transparent and things, so people can rely on it and expect it and that sort of thing. So up to you if you want to do that, or if you just want to surprise them, you can do that too. But yeah, that's about the time you'll want to do it, is after a year. All right, so let's talk about when to hire your second virtual assistants and how you can skip a bunch of steps that you've done previously when you've hired your first one. So when you hire your first one, obviously you go through all these various steps and whatnot, and you go through, you know, the posting an ad, and you know, the whittling it down to the first, second, and third interview, and then you have the final interview, and you do the whole thing. And that's great, and that's something you definitely want to do with your first virtual assistant. With your second virtual assistant that you're hiring, what I would suggest that you do is I would suggest that you talk to your current virtual assistant and you ask her or him if there are any friends or family that would be interested in working with your company. The advantage to that is if your virtual assistant's good, they've already kind of they know what you want and what you expect, and that's one thing you want to emphasize is don't recommend somebody that just needs a job. You know what I need, and and so that's the type of person I would recommend. So ask them if they have any friends or family that would like to work for your company, and then they'll refer you, and then ask them if if your virtual assistant can train the new one. So that's awesome, because then that's built in, that's hands-on. If they have any questions, they can talk to each other, that sort of thing. This sort of stuff kind of seems like a little bit of a no-brainer, but if nobody tells you this and says, hey, you know what, instead of getting back online and just applying, just ask them if they have a friend looking for work. 100% of the time, they know somebody that is out of job and looking for work. And so, sometimes it's perfect. Sometimes they come in and they're awesome, and any questions that they have, they can work hand in hand, so you're not having to rehash everything. Other times, they recommend their husband or something like that, and it turns out the husband just chills in front of the computer all day and doesn't really get anything done. And so you do have to be aware of that, but that is the best way to hire your second virtual assistant, and that's totally what I would recommend. So this kind of segues into firing a virtual assistant, because at some point you're going to need to let a virtual assistant go for one reason or another, and it could be performance, it could be your business just isn't doing as well, it could be you just can't afford them, that sort of thing. Unless they are abusing you in some way, as far as just really taking advantage of you, I always err on the side of not burning a bridge. And so I would definitely let them go in the nicest way possible. I would, make sure that they're, kind of taken care of on the way out the door, that sort of thing. The whole password thing I mentioned in the previous video. If you use LastPass, then you're not having to go through and change all your passwords. You can just cut off the access. But if they're monsters, shut down those passwords out of the blue and get out, and stuff like that. So I would suggest that, and just move on. And you know what? And sometimes, your virtual assistants are nice, but they're just not working out either. So that's a lot of times when you'll do a probationary period. So you'll do a probationary period. And again, let them know that up front. So you go, hey, listen, we're going to try this out for 3, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, see how it goes. And you can let them know that this is an experiment with my business as well, so that if for some reason finances change for me, in that 5 to 6 months as well, then I have to evaluate and see if I can even afford a VA. So that kind of gives you an exit out as well, so that way you're not just going, hey man, you didn't work out, and then they see a job post, So I would be, kind about that as well, and just let them know that this isn't really working out, and go your separate ways. So that is how to let go of VA if you need to. All right, so that's the end of the training for now. I may add some more stuff later that I forgot about and add it into the playlist, so that way you have it. But good luck with your new virtual assistant. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try and get to them. I'm a one-man show, so I do not have a VA monitoring my YouTube yet. So I don't have enough subscribers to do that yet. So, so it's just me. So I'll try and get to the answers as I can get to them. But yeah, if you have any questions or recommendations or that sort of thing, or if you use another piece of software that I do not use that I maybe should consider, definitely let me know. Like, share, hook me up. I'm trying to build this, and if this is stuff that you guys like, then I would continue to, do topics like this and kind of share my experience and my knowledge that I've gained in my business with you guys. So thank you guys. I will talk to you later. All right, bye.